Record.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hey, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, and examples of how small, emerging, and challenger brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a natural retailer, driving your business through to the consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's something that's important to you. The bottom line is we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important aspects of this journey to establishing and growing your brand. Tracy and I have made a lot of mistakes over the years here, and if we can help you avoid some of them, our mission is accomplished. Tracy?
Yeah, so Bruce and I have been in commercial operations in consumer packaged goods for well over 30 years. And what we mean by commercial operations is marketing, trade marketing, sales, managing brokers, managing distributors, divestitures, acquisitions, you name it. We've done a lot in our careers, and that's really the purpose of this podcast that we share with you on a bi-weekly basis, is just to share our experiences with you and help you, like Bruce said, avoid some of the mistakes that we've made. Also on our episodes, we invite our friends from the industry, either colleagues or friends, to join us so that they can also share their experiences with us today. So Bruce, I think we've got a special guest today, and if you would like to go ahead and introduce John, we'll get going.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. So today it brings me great pleasure to welcome John Pinto to the show. John, this is where you say hello.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me, guys.
Excellent. So John is the founder of a really cool brand called BoomBoom Naturals, which he's going to tell you about in a moment. But, you know, Tracy and I talk about the road to retail, and we've lived it a little bit and helped people, but John is in the absolute middle of it right now with a wonderful idea. So we're going to talk to John today and let you guys hear his approach of what he's done, you know, probably the good, the bad, and the ugly, hopefully emphasis on good, but there's always a little bit of the other. So John, tell us a little bit about yourself and what was your big idea for BoomBoom and how you got here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, ended up at Emory University for college, and then right out of school, had the opportunity to work at a startup where I was the first employee, and saw that company grow to about 50 people before I left. So I had an opportunity to see kind of firsthand what it took to like build and scale a business and hire people, manage people, and really kind of sunk my teeth into the whole entrepreneurial journey there. And then about, almost 8 years ago, the opportunity with BoomBoom came about, and really haven't looked back since. I grew up having nasal problems. I played basketball. I got hit in the nose probably more times than I can even remember. I broke it a couple of times. And when I was introduced to kind of a similar concept of product that's very prevalent in Thailand, I tried it and was like, oh my gosh, I kind of became obsessed with it. And since then, been working on our concept, BoomBoom, which is a daily use nasal stick that you use to kind of support nasal breathing, to reinforce nasal breathing. It's very refreshing. It's made with a blend of menthol and different essential oils. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun with our team, and I've been online primarily, but over the last couple of years, been making our push into retail, and quite a journey, definitely.
Excellent. Well, welcome and thank you for your time today. Tracy?
Yeah, so John, tell us a little bit more in detail about how this idea came about, and maybe if there was a opportunity in the marketplace, how did you identify that? So share a little bit with us.
Sure. Yeah. So the idea that kind of stemmed from Thailand really became interesting when I looked into it more, because it is a daily use product in Thailand. So everybody has one in their pocket or kind of in their bag or at their desk, and it has really become part of culture. And so when I, kind of looked at that, and then you look at the different nasal products in the US, they're all very much geared towards allergy, sinus, congestion, and when you're sick, really. And so I really did see it as an opportunity to bring something more for like the everyday carry type of product, where you could have something in your pocket or your purse and pull it out and use it and feel very refreshed and awake, and obviously help you breathe better through your nose. And so that's kind of been where we've differentiated, is creating scents that are maybe a little bit more appealing to the US market, but also just generally throughout the day, and not maybe when you're, in your bed feeling terrible and want kind of that menthol refreshing feeling.
So John, natural, a great angle, and there's some competing type products out there. In your background, did you have any OTC or healthcare, or were you the true entrepreneur and you're like, man, I'm going to figure it out as I go, and I'm not going to worry about indications and worry too much about my label right away? Or did you check all those boxes before you even really got started?
Great question. So personally, I had plenty of experience with essential oils growing up. Both of my parents are holistic, like functional docs. So essential oils were like, part of everyday life for me personally.
Interesting.
For a variety of different, kind of reasons. And so I had already known like they can be helpful, but I hadn't ever used them in like the format that we created with BoomBoom, where it's kind of a little bit more intense, and obviously going right up your nose. And so I had that background, but then in terms of like the retail side, OTC, packaging, all of that, no, completely oblivious to any of that, really. I mean, to say that I've learned a lot over the last few years figuring out is an understatement. It's been interesting for sure, but it is all natural. It's a very safe product, so we do bypass a lot of like the more formal like OTC requirements, which has been nice, and obviously like the goal and the path for us. Like we don't have any interest in playing in kind of the more like formal like drug market.
Interesting. So a follow-up there, John, is as the founder, and you had this idea and you have a little bit of a background kind of in essential oils with your upbringing and in your household, what's the best advice you would give a smaller emerging brand right as they're starting out? I mean, are you the guy who had the 25-page plan and you followed it, religiously, or were you the guy who like, look, man, I've got like 3 things checked and I got to get moving, and then we'll just keep course correcting? So kind of what would you tell folks that are in a situation like you were maybe 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think there's two kind of angles there. The first one, which is the one that I took, which was, hey, we're going to prove it online. We're going to build an audience online. We're going to get samples to people in mass online. And so the first thing I did, actually, and this probably stemmed from kind of the start of experience with the company that I was at right out of school, was I need a fulfillment partner. Like, I'm not going to be shipping out these products myself. I'm going to have a 3PL who holds our packs, who I can go in and upload orders and just get them out the door as quickly as possible. So that was like the first thing I did, which allowed us, and this was back in 2015, 2016, we would just DM people on Instagram, like anybody and everybody who had like a following from like 5,000 to 25,000. We DM them and said, really just complimented them, say, hey, we love your profile, we love what you're doing, we think you'd be interested in trying our product, would you be willing to like let us send you some samples? And that had a pretty high success rate, just getting the product out there.
Interesting.
Getting feedback from people. If the plan is to go to retail first, which I knew ultimately we would be going into retail, I didn't know how it was going to unfold, but that was always the bigger vision, was like, hey, this is a everyday carry product. This is like chapstick. This is like gum. This is like eye drops. Like, ultimately that is the plan. If you know that your plan is to go to retail, I would most definitely understand two things. One, the category that you're going into. I had no clue what that even meant when I got started. I was like, oh yeah, like I have this product and you just get it into the stores, and like obviously very far from the truth. So understanding the category and like where your product is going to sit on the shelf in the store, especially if you do think it is like new and innovative and different, which I definitely thought ours was at the time. There's probably something similar to it that's already on the shelf. So really understanding that. And then the other big thing is packaging. I mean, I can't tell you how much money we wasted on packaging the product inappropriately, like thinking it was going to sit on the shelf this way, and then it ends up going on the shelf this way. Yeah, lots of packaging errors along the way. So I would really kind of zone in on category and packaging, and really like going and what is everybody else on the shelf doing? Like there's a reason why the product is packaged a certain way. Most recently for us, like we got into kind of our second drug chain, and they required a footer on the blister pack, which we would have designed originally had we known that was even something that would have been a requirement, right? And so just understanding those little things and seeing what other people in the marketplace are doing is, I think, a really critical part of getting going.
That's good
Yeah,
advice.
I think one of the things you just said there, John, which is really interesting is, you know, you may think you're like super, super unique. And then when you really dig in, there's a couple of people that are sort of doing something similar. So then you need to really figure out what your meaningful point of difference is, because if you're not different somehow, you're condemned to compete on price, which long-term is tough. Tracy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a quick question that just popped into my head, John. So when you were developing the packaging, did you like have mock-ups and go to the store and put it on the shelf to see how it would look?
Nope, didn't do any of that. We it's so funny. We had blister packs originally, just like sealed blister packs. Then we were like, hey, but we want to be able to have them sit up in a display, and we want to fit 12 in a display. So we're going to do cartons. So we ended up moving to cartons, like that had a flat bottom, and we're shipping to one of our partners who was going to put them on clip strips. And then like I see it on the clip strip in the store, and like the carton is like squished open, and like the product is basically out. I'm just like, oh my God. So we ended up going back to blister packs. Yeah, lots of errors along the way.
That's great though to share with our audience. So my question is, John, so how did you know? So you great plan. You start online. You knew you eventually wanted to go to retail. So what was the magic that happened that said, okay, I'm ready? What was the criteria or your thought process of, okay, we're online? What made that? What was the tipping point that said, we're ready for retail?
Sure. Well, there's a couple things online, and I think a lot of, D2C focused founders are probably feeling this right now, who, probably maybe want to get into retail. As the online landscape has been changing pretty rapidly over the last couple of years with rising ad costs and just more people coming into the space. And it's, even from a content perspective, like how do you get people's attention? There's a lot of moving parts online. And so we always were kind of like had our eye on retail. We just didn't know exactly when, but for us, when we got to a point of seeing like a pretty significant reorder rate online, which is, probably around 20%, which we felt was pretty strong, because the content on like the front end online was like very much like curiosity piquing. Like we weren't talking about the benefits of BoomBoom. It was more like, what the heck is this product? And then people would click and buy it. And then of those people, about 20% were finding it useful and wanting to like reorder. We're like, okay, that's great. And then probably more importantly, it was the reviews coming in. So we had, thousands of reviews at this point, and some are terrible, and they're just like, hey, this doesn't do anything. We don't like it. We don't get it. And that's fine, because generally those people have kind of misaligned expectations of what they're expecting from the product. And then on the other side of that, we have, thousands of 5-star reviews where people are like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Like, it really helps me breathe better. I use this when I'm an Uber driver, and I use this to get through my shifts late night, because stimulating your sense of smell with something like BoomBoom is very awakening, and it does make you feel more alert. We have like MMA athletes using it. We have, my cousin just sent me a picture. He's in the Air Force, and he was like, this is like a random text I got, last week. He's like, I'm walking off of a plane. We just finished some mission they were on, and I see some young like airman with like a BoomBoom, and he was like, got all pumped up about it, and he sent me a picture. So like, there's a lot of different people using the product, and I think that's what got us excited to like get it out there into more points of distribution, because at the end of the day, like, we do also feel like it is an impulse type of product, where you're not necessarily going to go online to buy it. Like, who's going online to buy their packs of gum? Probably not many. There's probably some, but usually you're going to be at the store, you're walking along, and you're like, oh, like, I need gum, let me get a pack, or I need a lighter, or whatever it is, right? And so that for us was always kind of the longer goal, was hitting retail.
Gotcha. And so did you, out of curiosity, did you share those ratings and your repeat purchase with your retailers as you were entering retail?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that we had nothing, no leg to stand on other than,
Right.
what was happening on e-com. So we propped up a lot of those reviews. It was always interesting having the different, use cases, because the cold cough buyers kind of gravitated more earlier on for us. So we would always kind of try and focus on that. But we definitely were leveraging that online success into those meetings, which was helpful, I think, at least a little bit.
I figured you did. I just wanted our audience to hear that. Bruce, anything to add there?
Yeah, just one thing. So John, as you've made these moves starting to go into retail, have you guys been just kind of figuring it out on your own, or did you look into getting a broker or a sales agent or someone who specializes in the one or two accounts that you're really focused on right now? Or are you guys just, loading the wagon train yourself?
So people are probably going to laugh at this when they hear it. Like, when I tell you we knew nothing about retail, I mean, like, we knew nothing about retail, 4 or 5 years ago. And I legitimately went on to Amazon and I typed in how to sell to retail, and this guy's book came up, Jerry. And Jerry happens to live relatively close to me. And Jerry wrote this whole book on how to sell to retail. He's been in the game for a long time. And Jerry's been helping me out ever since. And he's been fantastic. He's kind of on his way out of the industry, but he's been almost like a broker's broker in a sense, where he's really like helped me get into, CVS and some of these other places. But now we are finally, 3-4 years later, working with other brokers who are like seeing what we've seen for a little bit now and are willing to kind of work with us, because the broker relationship, which again, it's kind of a two-way sale. Like, they're selling you a little bit, but you also have to sell them. They're not going to take on an item that isn't going to move, or they don't know enough about. And for many years, BoomBoom has always been this, kind of obscure item that nobody really wanted to touch in the broker world. But that's changing, and it's actually very exciting, because what I've also realized is that it's definitely about having the right brokers and having the right relationships. So it's been an interesting kind of ride the last few years figuring that out.
Yeah, that's a great point, because during COVID, Tracy and I interviewed a dozen buyers from some of the biggest retailers that handle many of the CPG products. And one of the folks we spoke with, their comment was exactly what you just said. These small brands, they said, get someone who knows their way around our account, because relationships matter. So
yeah.
sounds good. So Next question, John. So now that you've been plugging away and you're getting some traction and starting to grow, the next thing an entrepreneur has to consider is, do I keep self-funding? Do I put a 14th mortgage on my house and risk my marriage? If you start looking for an investor, what criteria, what are the checklist in your mind of like, I think I'm ready because these things have happened. So that's one part of the question. And the second is, what kind of a profile would you be looking for, or are you looking for in a potential investing partner into your business?
Yeah, great question. I think, yeah, so one of my best friends who is like our finance and ops kind of head guy, we always talk cash flow because it's obviously very important as you scale into retail, and it's the swings are like crazy, right? It's an interesting place to be in when you don't have an investor like us, right? And so we've been planting seeds for a while now, and I think when the time is right, we will find the right partner who will kind of get in the mix with us. But the number one thing that I care about is, do they actually like the product and like see the vision that we have for it being an everyday carry, daily use item? Like I do genuinely believe like that is the potential of the brand and the product, is to be like a chapstick type of item. So I think having somebody in the mix that like gets that, sees that uses the product, that likes the product is really important. And then I think like second to that, like a strategic partner that could help with the management of retail distribution, right? So we're fine getting product on time in full and doing all of that, but there are people in the space that, have a lot more experience and have a lot more brands that they're doing this with. And so I think finding a partner that can help with that, I think would be really interesting for us to look at. And definitely something that's always been kind of top of mind for me is like understanding who those people in the space are, kind of specifically to where we're at in like HBC kind of supplement world. So yeah, those are kind of two of the top things that we're looking at. But at the end of the day too, like the cash, just the cash alone, I feel confident we can do it with just some cash, but that's obviously easier said than done, getting somebody to write a check sometimes.
So as you talk to people, John, or you've heard stories from other entrepreneurs, is there a magic number kind of sales wise that you keep hearing? Like, do you hear stuff like, man, when you hit 5 million, the world starts to open up, or is it 3, or is it 10?
Yeah, it's the magic range that I've been hearing is like 7 to 10. Once you get into the 7 to 10 range, people will start to kind of take you a little bit more seriously. You probably have more retail distribution. We also have a very low ticket item, right? And so when you're selling online, an average order of $25, I mean, we're doing a lot of volume, but revenues aren't crazy high because we're not selling a $75 supplement package or whatever the product is, right? So always kind of looking at that. But I think, retail, you can see the numbers, right? And the math is there and the sell-through is very consistent. So I think, from what I've heard, it's like kind of that 7 to 10 range. And that's if your product is selling and you get a couple of bigger customers, like I think we should be there hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah, I would validate that number just based on other people in your position that we've spoken with. So it's interesting that does seem to be kind of the bullseye. Tracy?
Yeah.
So 2 questions I had that kind of go hand in hand. So you kind of mentioned some of the mistakes that you talked about a little bit, packaging, but maybe tell us a little bit of maybe a couple more of the mistakes you think your do-overs, a couple of do-overs.
Yeah.
Sure. What's your greatest
Yeah,
success? I want to talk about success as well as do-overs.
yeah, for sure. Do-overs. Oh man. I think understanding exactly what the slotting fee is going to be is very important. I think there's some um, probably, I think there's people in this space who know exactly how it's going to be, and then there's people in the space who it's their first timers and they don't really know the right questions to ask. So I think understanding that is really important. You know, and if you're basing slotting fees on number of doors that you're going to be in, but you have to give like a set dollar amount, and you give a dollar amount based off of number of doors, and then you agree to that, and then the number of doors are less than that. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not ideal, you know? And like, I get a sense that that probably happens pretty regularly,
it does,
including
unfortunately.
to us. So it is what it is. Good learning lessons. You know, I don't get caught up on these things too much anymore. It's just like, all right, as long as we're not going to like lose our shirt and we can get in the account, we know we're going to make it happen. We know it's going to sell. So I don't get stuck on those too much, and we just kind of move on. But those are probably some of the, and then I guess one other do-over would be like understanding how it's going to ship in to the retailer. So like, you know, obviously there's the layers of distribution. We've been lucky enough to go direct with like some pretty big customers, but we had based some pricing on, and that's a whole other thing, pricing. Understand your pricing. We messed that up. Oh God, so bad a couple of years ago. And it took about a year to course correct pricing at all levels, which we finally figured it out, thank God. But we didn't understand that one of these customers, we were sending it in on clip strips. We thought we were going to send it in on clip strips, two in a case, and then we thought those were going to go in like a bigger master, and that's what we based our pricing and our shipping costs off. Well, no, that's not how they wanted it. They just wanted us to send the boxes with the two strips of 10, and that was it. And I'm like, oh man, like we, you know, bad math, right? And so those are some of the things you don't know until you go through it. But
Right.
now I know all the right questions to ask. So
Right. Learning experience. Tell
yeah.
us about your greatest success so far with BoomBoom. What are you most proud of?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this. Honestly, I think the team that we've built, I don't think we've really done things by the book, so to speak. You know, we have about 8 of us. We have really great like partners, suppliers that are, you know, amazing, and we've built these relationships over many years, and they always come through and, you know, we need them to. But for the team specifically, like even like before people were working remote, we were always very remote based. We were always very much supportive of other people working on side projects and side hustles, and understanding that like the world of working is changing pretty radically, and you can either like clamp down as like a business owner and try to like force people to do certain things, or you can understand that things are changing and you can be really supportive of that and open up your team to really like learning and understanding entrepreneurship. And you know, I have like, you know, one of my first employees, you know, has an Etsy store where they sell like croc charms, and they make like 2 or 3 grand a month, you know, like these little charms you put on your sandals. And like he learned all of that because he's been working at BoomBoom for, you know, 5 years. So like things like that I get really excited about. I think like as an entrepreneur, you want your team ultimately to be able to go down that path themselves. So I do think that is probably one of our biggest successes, is just the team we've built. Like nobody's left, like everybody loves working together, and it's been a very positive and like rewarding setup for the last, you know, 7 years at this point.
So that's really interesting. The team, so true. How do you go about, John, driving demand for BoomBoom? I heard your anecdote earlier where you kind of found some influencers and asked to send them product. As you've gotten, as your roots have gotten a bit more sunk in the ground and you've figured a lot of stuff out over these years, how do you drive demand? Or awareness, actually. Awareness leads to demand.
Yeah, it's we have our whole online business, which is still, probably 80% of our revenue, and that's probably going to flip-flop next year, which is crazy to think, but it's or maybe it might be 50-50 next year, and then it completely shifts. But the online business has completely changed in that it is now our awareness and sampling engine. Like we'll spend as much money as we possibly can online so long as we can break even. We're not using it to go and acquire customers anymore. We're using it to educate people, to get them to order the products, and to drive views. I mean, we have hundreds of millions of impressions at this point online over the last so many years. So we really focus on that. We really focus on our store locator, making sure like it's up to date, it's working, and driving like very targeted, like geo-targeted ads to people in those areas where we have distribution. And you can do a lot of creative things online in that realm, which I think we've done okay. It's really hard to track, but the sell-through in some of our bigger accounts is like insanely consistent, and I gotta believe like some of that, at least a portion of it, is because of our online efforts. And then we do a ton of sampling. Like our forever marketing theme is sticks in hands, which I stole from Brandon Cohen, which is the Liquid IV founder. I've been friends with him for quite a while, and I asked him, I'm like, hey man, like what's like the one thing? It's like you did it, you made it happen. I was like, what's the one thing? And he said, sticks in hands. He's like, we got the product into as many people's hands as possible. And so that's what we do. We go out, we do a ton of sampling, we vend at like 20 live music festivals. And this year will probably be like 18 or 20. Big investment, a lot of money up front. Sometimes it rains. Sometimes you have a bad placement in this side of the venue and you lose thousands of dollars. Other times you make like 30 grand. We'll go and make like 30 grand sometimes in a weekend selling inside of the venue and then also giving out samples to people.
Interesting. Well, when you have a product where sampling is, legal and cost effective, even if it's not totally, there's nothing better than the experience, right? The taste, the smell, you feel better.
Well,
Tracy,
funny enough,
go ahead, John.
Funny enough, I was reading Ramping Your Brand by Dr. James Richardson, I believe is his name. I could be drawing a blank, but I read that book and I was like, okay, this is very interesting. And I'm reading and I'm kind of like getting to like the gist of it. And he's like very much in like the CPG world and understanding how some brands make it, some brands don't. And we're finally getting to like the climax of like, all right, like, how do I do this? Like, how do I win? And the first thing that he calls out, and my jaw literally hit the floor. The first thing he calls out is sampling at live music events. And I'm like, oh my God, we've been doing that for 5 years. So
that's good. That's good.
I was like, all right, I think that might be good. I don't know. So we'll see. You can't track it. So time will tell, I guess.
So yeah. I like your other line that you use, everyday carry item. Is that a Pintoism or did you steal that one too?
I heard that from somebody. I don't know. Yeah, we've always called it like an everyday carry. Somebody, I like that. Yeah, like in EDC, everyday carry, like, I think of like gum, chapstick, maybe a lighter, mints, anything that you have in your pocket or your purse at all times that like you can't leave home without. That's an everyday carry, at least to me.
Well, I think that's one of your bumper stickers, man. I like that.
I do too.
Tracy, unless you have anything else, might be time for the big finish.
This has been great. So first of all, John, thank you so much for joining Bruce and I today. It was very insightful. I think our audience is going to love it. And if our audience wants to reach you, how's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for having me. I think the best place is probably on LinkedIn, John Pinto. And yeah, you'll see me right there. I'm trying to get a little bit more active on there. It's, I think, a really great place to network and meet people. And I'm trying to lean into that a little bit more because I've been absolutely terrible over the last 5 years doing
It takes
that.
a commitment. It does.
It is a commitment for sure.
Well, as a small company founder, I'm sure you have plenty of extra time just to sit around posting all day.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people like plan, like they'll block time to like write their posts out. I'm like, I can't do that. It's like if something comes to me and I feel it's share worthy or I want to get it out there, I'll do it. But like, yeah, it really is. It's tough. It's tough. But I also have seen the value in it. And so it's this,
Mhm.
it's always a push and pull. So
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Bruce, are we ready for the big finish?
I think we are, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, audience. And I hope you got as much out of this as we did. And look for us on our LinkedIn page, Road to Retail. We also are on Spotify and iTunes now, so please subscribe. We also have our standard YouTube channel. And John, we just really appreciate your time today. And I think it was just a great insight. And I know our audience is going to love it. And look for this post on LinkedIn here in the next couple of days.
All right,
awesome.
John, thank you
guys.
so much.
Thanks.
Good
Thank
luck
you.
out there, people.